Good morning and welcome to City Council's post agenda this morning at 10:30. I'm Councilman O'Connor. I'll be chairing this post agenda. With us today, we have Council members Kraus, Councilman Wilson. I see Councilman Strasburger, and I'm sure other council members will join us. This afternoon's post agenda is on, it's actually a follow-up from the mayor's task force on police reform. And we had this about a month ago. We got some answers from what that task force put together, what they'd like to see our police force look like down the road in the future. And their biggest takeaway from that was the implementation of their recommendations for our public safety as well as our police. So what we spoke with our public safety director and Chief Schubert, who's here with us today as well, about what they've already implemented and what they plan on doing in the upcoming months and upcoming years. So we, on behalf of City Council, wanted to bring them to the table to have them discuss with us their plans, what they took away from the task force, and how they plan to start investing in what the task force had recommended. So I am going to pass this meeting off now to Director Hisrick, who's then going to introduce Chief Schubert, and then we'll have council questions after that. So, Director.
Thank you, Councilman. And on behalf of public safety and the police, I appreciate.
Director, we can't hear you.
Are you able to hear me now?
I can hear him.
Yeah, Councilman, I can hear him too.
I'm still not hearing anything. Is anybody else, members? You can hear?
We are, Councilman.
Yeah, we can hear him. Yeah, we can hear him pretty good.
All right. I apologize, Councilman, but on behalf of public safety and Pittsburgh Bureau of Police, I appreciate and thank council for the opportunity to give you an update on where we are in response to the reform that the mayor's task force provided us in October. I would just like to say that, it's been a very difficult year for public safety and for the police officers. And our response to the recommendations have been somewhat slow due to the COVID, the pandemic virus. I mean, today we alone have 78 police officers off and 18 that are infected with the virus. And that has slowed some of the responses to some of the issues that have been brought forward to us. As we discussed in the previous meeting, it's the police officers on the street, they never wanted to be put in this situation. They are general practitioners, similar to what we consider in the medical field. They are not subject matter experts. They are not the cardiologists and the internists and the neurosurgeons. I mean, they are put daily into situations that they are confronted with issues that they don't have the answers. They are not the experts. However, with some of the recommendations and some of the insight from the task force between the Police Bureau and Public Safety, we are trying to address that. We are working closely with the county and their Department of Health Services and Human Services to come up with this response, an appropriate, timely response for homelessness, for mental issues, mental behavior issues, and for addiction. And that's hopefully what we will be able to discuss with you today. With that being said, I will turn it over to Chief Schubert. Also on the meeting, or in the meeting, is Shatara Murphy. She is currently the Assistant Director of Community Affairs, and she's been working not only with the Community Services and Violence Prevention, of which she will oversee for public safety, but she works on a daily basis with the Mayor's Community Health and Safety Office. So she will be able to address any questions that come up to where we are with that. However, once again, a lot of these issues cannot be addressed overnight. It's going to take a considerable amount of time. However, some of the recommendations within the report have already been addressed and were addressed prior to the recommendations even coming out. So Chief Schubert and his staff will go into those recommendations that have already been resolved. With that, I'll now turn it over to the Police Chief, Scott Schubert. Chief?
Thank you, Director, and thank you, Council, for allowing us to be in front of you. Unfortunately, we're still in the COVID phases, so we can't be together in person, but we appreciate it, and we wish all of you a happy holiday this week. Just before I start, I just want to go over the people from the PBP who are in attendance today. We have, and I'm just going to get on the list that I can see, but I see Chris Ragland is the commander in charge of our OSAR, Officer of Strategy, Accountability, and Resiliency. He's going to be speaking. I see Anna Kudrow, she's the Assistant Chief of Operations. I see Eric Holmes, he's the Chief of Staff for me and oversees intelligence, our real-time crime center, and all of our analysts. I see Linda Rosado Barone, she's the Assistant Chief of Administration. And I see Sergeant Tiffany Costa, who works directly with me on the Community Engagement Office, does a fantastic job on a lot of things. And if I'm missing anyone, I apologize. They can announce themselves during the meeting. But just one, like I said, I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity. As many of you know, I've been with the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police for 28 years. I love the city of Pittsburgh. I love being a Pittsburgh police officer. I always have. This is the only thing I've ever wanted to do in my life. And, you know, had an opportunity over the last 28 years to see our department go through a lot of changes. We're always evolving. You know, we went through the consent decree. We went through the creation of this Citizens Review Board. We went through many tragedies. We went through many times where the city is in financial distress, just like we are right now due to the COVID. And we've had some incidents where we had people that weren't the best models for the city of Pittsburgh or our profession. And, you know, through that all, the vast majority of us love being cops, love being working with the community, love being professionals, and, you know, do the right thing. And we always want to make sure that Pittsburgh has a police department that people can be proud of and know that we care about them and that we want to do everything we can to work with them to keep our city safe. And to, as I said, it's always evolving, always trying to do better. When I took over as the chief in November of 2016 as the acting chief, and then in February of 2017, you know, becoming the chief of police full time, you know, I've always strived to ensure that we project ourselves to the public and within our organization as being professional. We care about accountability, we care about transparency, we care about diversity, and we care about employee wellness. And we always want to do everything we can to improve upon that. And when you look at the transparency, there's a lot of things that we do, putting information out, and you know, we'll get to the point where some of our subject matter experts can tell you all of the things that are out there. You know, but some of these things we would not have been able to do without the support from the mayor's office and council, whether it be our body-worn camera, whether it be our taser, you know, the training that we provide, but giving us every opportunity to be the professionals and have what we need to be successful working with the community to make our city a better place to live, work, and visit, and a safer place. So I'm committed. I appreciate the work that the task force did on putting this together. It's something that we've been going over for a while since we've got the document. We've also been going over things that we've received from BPEP, working with them and others. As I said, we're always evolving. We're always striving to do better. And I just want to let you know this. You have a fine police department. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. But we strive to be the best that we can and to provide the best to the residents of the city of Pittsburgh, the businesses within the city of Pittsburgh, and those who visit the city of Pittsburgh. Those who know me know that I'm very proactive in community engagement. I'm always out in the field to even walking beats in the various communities. My goal is to walk all 90 communities for a couple hours at each community. I'm a third of the way there, and I'm going to keep doing it. And when I get to the 90, it's going to go back over because there's parts of the communities that you can't hit in those 2 hours. But it's good for me to hear from the residents when I'm walking around, to hear from the businesses, the people that work there, and to hear from the officers on the street when I run into them. So we do a lot. I think we do a lot that people are not even aware of. So we're going to do everything we can to promote the good things that we do with the community, working in partnership to make our city better. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris Ragland. If somebody could just raise your hand or say yes, but did you receive the document strengthening the bridges between the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police and the community? Did Chief of Staff forward that to you all? No.
I didn't get a copy from the clerk's office to disseminate. So.
Yeah, I don't see one in my email, but I mean, you guys can always follow up and send it to us. We probably don't need it right now, but thank you, Chief, for looking out.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure we'll get it to you, and I'll say this with it. It's a living document. We're working on it every day, and it's sort of our strategic plan of how we're going to implement this, and really to give people a better overview of what we're doing within the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. So we will get that for you. The only thing I ask, if at all possible, when we send this to you, because it is a living document, that it's for you to review and for you to provide feedback to us. We don't want this right now going out to the public until we have a more finalized version that we can share online. But if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. And we're also going to make sure it goes to the task force members as well, so they can see where we're at right now and where we're going with the document that they provided for us.
Okay, so, yeah, if you want to, you can send it over to myself or the clerk, and we'll get it to all council members. So thank you. Yep,
I'll forward it over to you in a minute. I'm going to turn it over to Chris Ragland. As I said, he's the commander in charge of our Office of Strategy, Accountability, and Resiliency. And that's one of the things that we created this year, and he can probably kind of go over it to help improve our organization internally. So Commander Ragland.
Thanks, Chief. Can everybody hear me before I begin? All right. So thank you, Council, for this opportunity to talk about some of the things the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police has done, and where we want to go as an agency. So some of you may know me back as a commander of the North Side Zone 1 station. Back in August, the chief has a vision and wanted to better our department and increase our accountability and transparency. And he created the Office of Strategy, Accountability, and Resiliency, OSAR, which I am head of. And so some of you may ask, well, what does that office do? And so I would say that we are responsible for researching best practices and policy, incubating, fostering, implementing PBP initiatives, advancing the strategic mission of the chief, and supporting short and mid and long-term goals. And we're continuously auditing PBP protocols and procedures to promote economy, efficiency, diversity, and accountability throughout the organization. And so before I kind of get into some of the things that are kind of going on, I just wanted to kind of hit on some of the things that the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police has done prior to the social unrest. And so, some of these initiatives over the last 3 years are things that we put in place. We partnered with foundations, we partnered with social organizations, and I think that they're important that we hit upon these. One of them is the Calvin Hall Public Safety Center. That was a partnership between the Housing Authority, City of Pittsburgh, the Buell Foundation, which placed 6 officers and a sergeant in the Northview Heights and Allegheny Dwellings neighborhoods. And this is where it allowed officers and the community to collaborate on safety issues. There is a report from a Fuse fellow that evaluated that initiative, and I'd be happy to forward that to council, at a later time. Another initiative that we had was the Youth Diversion Program. That was a partnership between the Foundation of Hope, the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police, the Housing Authority, the Buell Foundation, the Pittsburgh Foundation, Dollar Bank, Allegheny County Juvenile Probation, the Pittsburgh Municipal Courts, and the Allegheny County District Attorney. And that initiative sought to take individuals who committed minor crimes between the ages of 13 and 26 and divert them away from the criminal justice system and provide them a social network of support to get the help they needed. Chief created the Community Engagement Office, and we have the individual on Sergeant Tiffany Klein-Costa, who would be more than happy to delve into that. But that office expanded youth programming to offer positive educational experiences through workshops and listening sessions. On the technology front, you council supported the ShotSpotter expansion, and now it covers all areas of the city. We went from 3 square miles to 18 square miles, and that system detects gunshots within seconds, allowing us to respond, render first aid, and secure evidence and arrest violent offenders. We've expanded the public safety cameras, and we have created the Real-Time Crime Center, which is a hub for the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police that we use to address serious issues, shift resources, et cetera. So those are just some of the initiatives that we did. I could probably talk for 90 minutes on just some of the things that we have done, in the last 3 years under Chief Schubert. Going forward, I can say part of what is under OSAR is policy. One of the recommendations from the task force, and we appreciate the task force hard work. They spent a lot of hours, talking to us, talking to residents, and one of those recommendations was the A Can't Wait policy reforms. So the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police, we reviewed our policies. All our policies are online under the transparency aspect of the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police, and we expect through the first quarter of 2021 to be in full compliance with the A Can't Wait policy reforms. Additionally, my office has worked with the chief to develop some strategic priorities for the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police going forward. We put those in kind of 3 buckets. Those 3 buckets of priorities would be organizational excellence, relationship-based policing practices, and partnership-focused community initiatives. And I can go into some of those. Under the organizational excellence, there's a few goals we'd like to have. We'd like to build a technology platform that allows for interactive, integrated approach, accountability, transparency, increased safety that results in increased community confidence. There's 2 individuals on this panel, Commander Eric Holmes, Dr. Heath Johnson. They're members of the Racial Disparities Task Force, and that task force has awarded 2 contracts to independent research firms to study race in Pittsburgh's criminal justice system. We're looking to implement previously purchased software that will allow us to better track officers under our command. We've issued and trained almost the entire department on the new Axon body-worn camera. If you look at some of the other agencies, some of those other agencies did not issue cameras to all of their personnel. The Pittsburgh Bureau of Police has cameras issued to every member of its force, including myself, including the chief. Another goal under organizational excellence is reorganizing of policing to support enhanced accountability and decentralized decision making. We're looking at examining nationwide best practices across the nation regarding with respect to transparency with respect to discipline, et cetera. So when I go to some of the other strategies and going forward, I mentioned relationship-based policing practices. Chief Schubert is a very strong proponent of neighborhood-based policing and relationship-based policing. So we're doubling down on the CROs and NRO program, making sure that we have individuals that are accountable to the residents of each of the neighborhoods. Under partnership focused community initiatives, one of the initiatives we have currently going on, we are partnering with the Foundation of Hope in the Allegheny County Health Department for a substance use disorder pre-arrest diversion program. This program was mentioned by, I think, the mayor back in probably the summer. But we are moving ahead with this, and I expect within the first quarter we can have a pilot up in North Side, which it looks to make take individuals who are falling under a substance use disorder and divert them away from the criminal justice system and provide them the help that they need. And that's just some of the three kind of initiatives or three strategies we have with the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. And at that point, I can answer questions. I can turn it back over to the chief, and I'm sure that there's others on this call that would like to chime in and tell you, council, all of the great work that we're doing.
Well, thank you, Chief. I just a quick note: we are joined by Councilman Lavelle as well as Councilwoman Gross. Chief, did you want me to open it to council members, or do you have a couple more presentations? I wasn't sure what you wanted to do.
Can we real quick, if you don't mind, we'll go through some of the people on the panel from Pittsburgh Police.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Go each one. That's perfect. Yeah.
Thank you. If we can start with Commander Holmes and Dr. Johnson.
So, good afternoon, Eric Holmes. My area of focus is on a real-time crime center, which Commander Ragland alluded to, as well as our crime analyst unit, which Dr. Heath Johnson, who's on the line, is the coordinator of. Also our criminal intelligence unit. And so Chief Schubert, shortly after becoming chief, asked me to lead the efforts to create a real-time crime center. And so we did some peer exchanges with Camden County, New Jersey, Stockton, California, NYPD, and looked at their real-time crime centers and see how we could develop one here in Pittsburgh. Like Commander Ragland said, really being the nerve center for the police department, with the focus on precision policing, focused on using data to assist us in our deployment of resources. I read the task force report, and I know a lot of emphasis was put on data and data reporting. We are part of the Western Pennsylvania data warehouse. We were there, I believe it was October of 2018, when President Obama came to CMU and launched the White House Data Initiative, which we were a part of. And Heath's team, under his leadership, has really done a lot of work in moving forward with our data reporting internally and both externally. And I'd like for Heath perhaps to maybe jump in and talk a little bit about the work that his team does. They do a great job. So Dr. Johnson.
Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Heath Johnson here. I oversee the crime analysis unit, which is a civilian team that was brought on to really look at data all across the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. Over the last 4 or 5 years, we've made real strides in getting lots of the data that the police collect and use, both analyzed on an internal basis, as Commander Holmes said, to best direct our resources to make sure that our policies are accomplishing many of their stated goals. And I think some of our examples of our work can be seen at the Western Pennsylvania Regional Data Center. They have some 300 data sets, many of which provided by the Department of Public Safety, the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. Those are all publicly available. We have recently put together a sheet that just lists essentially all of those data sets that are currently available. And we are in talks with the folks at the WPRDC, as well as the Allegheny County Department of Human Services, who also house some interactive dashboards regarding violent crime in the city of Pittsburgh, and well, they of course cover the county as well. But we're working with both of those agencies in a partnership to try to expand the types of data that are available. We see no reason why this won't be accomplished in 2021, as we of course have to vet some of these data sets to make sure that no sensitive information certainly gets released. But we have good relationships and working with both of those entities, and really looking forward to having our full suite of data available for public consumption moving into 2021. Additionally, we're very happy to show off, frankly, the work that the PBP does on an annual basis in our annual reports, and taking the recommendations from the task force. We are working to expand the types of analysis that we present in that annual report. With the year drawing to a close shortly here, we're compiling some of the final data sets for 2020, and my team is going to be working diligently in this new year to try to provide really an expanded set of information that will be accessible to the public, certainly internally, just to make sure that transparency and accountability are two of the big keystones we constantly lean on. And our crime analysis unit is happy to work with that. And of course, always we're working with the community as well to fulfill requests for additional data. But really our hope is to have all of that stuff kind of accessible to anyone who seeks it out. Further, working with, like I mentioned, the WPRDC and Allegheny County DHS. They have some resources and are happy to partner with us to try to visualize some of this data, because there is a divide of sorts between those who might be interested in it and those who have the skills or adept at using data to make conclusions. We would like to assist in making that an easy and accessible process to anyone who may be interested. And we've already seen some good examples of that. And it'll just be a matter of getting our data onto those platforms where we can then make sure everything is digestible to your average consumer of this type of information. And that's really all I have to remark on that front. But again, all this is available, and we have links to all of those. I'm sure we'll put out with the report that was already promised to council.
Thanks, Dr. Johnson. Chief?
Yep. Real quick, I'm going to go down. I'm going to have Sergeant, I'll just say it so I don't have to repeat it each time. We'll start with Sergeant Costa, who she can talk about the Community Engagement Office. And we'll go to Assistant Chief Linda Barone with the training and wellness. And then we'll go Assistant Chief Anna Kudroff for any comments she has on the homelessness, addiction, mental health. As the director said, we're working hand in hand with the county on what that would look like for co-response and how a lot of things can be improved around the county. And then we'll have Shatara. She can go over the GVI, health and safety and things like that. But one thing I do want to say, and I've said this to you before, and I want to say it so it's not forgotten on my end. But I talked about diversity being a huge thing for us as an organization. It's something we continue to struggle with. Now, we have close to 300 people that can retire come beginning of 2021. So that's a third of our department. And of that number, it's in the high 50s are people of color. Right now, we're just under 13% for people of color within the City of Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. If all of those officers, supervisors retire, we will probably go to less than 7% as an organization with people of color as police officers. Right now, it doesn't represent the demographics of the City of Pittsburgh. And if all would go, we're going to be in pretty bad shape with that. And we're not hiring anybody for 2021. So the first class would be probably in 2022, and it takes a year to get a group through the class, through the academy. So I just want you to know, because that's something, and I've said it to you before, it's a deep concern to me for our organization. And it's also a deep concern because of when you get into the supervisory ranks of having commanders, of having assistant chiefs, of having a deputy chief and chief of police, for future years. So I just wanted to put that out there because it's something that I think about daily. If we can go to Sergeant Costa, Community Engagement Office.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for having us. And thank you for all the hard work of the Reform Task Force, because that was an incredibly informative report. So I run the Community Engagement Office, which was established in September of 2019. I work directly under Chief Schubert to serve the needs of the community and further build partnerships and relationships with community members and organizations. Some of the main goals that we've been working on over the last year are kind of solidifying our community resource officers and neighborhood resource officers as a team, working together within the Community Engagement Office. So we've started planning trainings for those officers to focus on strengthening community partnerships, utilizing resources within the communities, and kind of just establishing ourselves as a team with a lot of assets to be used within the department. We've also been working on establishing a data tracking network so that we can track the hours we spend in community engagement, and also to track our partners and make sure that we're serving all of our neighborhoods, all 90 of our neighborhoods. We're also working on promotion of our existing or developing community programs and partnerships and event participation through social media, presentations to the public, and whatnot. Some of the specific things that we've been focusing on over the last year is the expansion of Youth Connections. Youth Connections is a program that began in Brashear High School, and also the Student Achievement Center. They're listening sessions / mentoring sessions / educational sessions for 9th grade students who are mandated by state requirements to take civics. And that seems like a great space to talk about policing and relationships with the police for youth. So that has expanded to 7 schools, and we're looking to expand that to every single Pittsburgh public high school within the city and some of our charter school partners also. We've also started to work on establishing faith-based conversations with faith-based leaders within each of the geographical zones, and then representatives from the CEO office, the Community Engagement Office, just to build relations there, like building the bridges that we keep talking about, so that officers and leaders can have conversations, get to know each other, build trust, and then the leadership can take that relationship and share information with their congregants, but also they can bring information to the commanders and advise some of the work that the commanders are doing. We're also working on the development of a Chiefs Advisory Council, more information to come. And lastly, one of the things that I've been focused on lately is developing further relationships between the CEO staff and the GVI outreach and reach workers, because our work overlaps so much. I think it's essential that we continue to build those relationships. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant Chief Barone.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm having some difficulty with my laptop.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity. I am the Assistant Chief of Administration, and I oversee support services and administration branch of the Bureau, which includes the property room, our training academy, our court liaison units, our central records and reports units, the warrant office that reviews and processes warrants and arrests of our officers, our wellness coordinator, and also under that follows our coordinator, Commander Dagler of PMAP, as well as our computer operations unit. As we all know, technology is a necessary thing for everyone, especially for us in the Bureau of Police. There's a need for transparency, and technology will allow us to have that, but we all know it isn't cheap, and it does require updates and maintenance continuously to have it working properly. We have the citywide camera system as well as ShotSpotter, as Commander Ragler mentioned, that enables our officers to get to victims quickly, identify locations, evidence that may be there, and actors at times. We have recently upgraded our body-worn camera devices to the body-worn 3 that will allow us the ability to be able to view online activity as it's occurring. So far, we have 716 of those new devices that we have recently deployed. Due to COVID, it limits our ability to do in-house, in-person training. So we have developed virtual training for this device, as well as our additional training with the new TASER 7s that we have under this Police 7 package that we currently have. Our officers have come to rely on utilizing their body-worn cameras for a number of different aspects during their tour of duty. If something's occurring, we get firsthand view of what's occurring there. If victims of domestics are encountered, we're able to take statements, view injuries that will help with cases moving forward. We've also worked and updated our lethality assessment program for the domestic violence app that we use, so that it enhances our tools in the fields. Our training academy is responsible for a number of various trainings that we are mandated yearly by our municipal officers training commission. And again, because of COVID, we have gone to online training through our Padavin system, where officers are required to take the training online, and we will be aware that everybody has done this type of training. Each year we have to do additional training to include CPR, first aid, and firearms requirements certification. Those are done. This year was a little bit challenging, but we were able to do what we needed to get done based on the COVID plans we have identified to ensure the safety of everyone involved. Next year, we will continue the mandatory training with our yearly legal updates. Including in the training for the state next year is also the juvenile justice training, human trafficking training, and special needs that our officers Bureau-wide will receive. Again, it's a mandated set of training requirements that everyone will have to take. We are also including de-escalation training, and that will consist of both lecturing and scenarios. We have use of force, defensive tactic training, Again, that will be the use of force review with the de-escalation, a number of other techniques that we will do when we're able to and do it safely. Next year, firearms annual qualification will continue as well. On our use of force, we've taken additional steps in adding an additional review of doing a monthly review of each use of force through our training academy and subject matter experts, so that we look for any trends that might be developing, any training needs that we need to take to ensure that we are following the proper protocols and as our policy dictates with those things. The wellness coordinator has been very busy lately. We had to cancel our crisis intervention team classes. The majority of our officers have been trained in CIT, and we are working with the developers to create a virtual training for this. We've also completed, we have a current recruit class in there, and they have completed the mental health first aid training last week. And we are currently developing a mental health and first aid train the trainer class. And we have 2 sessions, one in January of 2021 and one in February of 2021, where we will get a number of our instructors and adjunct instructors trained so that we can train the whole department in mental health and first aid. We are also working to develop a mental health training for our civilian personnel as well. We don't want to leave them out. Everyone could really benefit from this type of training. So we are in the process of developing the training for civilian personnel on that. We are looking at researching a number of different trauma-informed care training for our officers as well, bureau-wide. That is in the process of being planned on working in that. All recruiting events, let me back up a minute. Our wellness coordinator is part of PMAP, and they continue to reach out to those members who are on leave or have been involved in critical incidents and follow up with them through to ensure that anything they might need, that we can address any concerns that they have or any things that they might need. We reach out to them on a daily basis. We have most of our recruiting events this year have been canceled due to the pandemic, but we are following up with a number of ways that we can reach out to those that are interested in law enforcement. We have addressed a number of issues and questions and reached out to approximately 49 individuals that wanted more information on law enforcement with the Bureau of Police, and we continue to do that as well. Are there any questions?
Thank you. If we can, Assistant Chief Anna Kudroff, do you have any words on some of the things that you've been working on with the homelessness and mental health and addiction?
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that yesterday was National Homeless Memorial Day. And in Pittsburgh, we've had a homeless memorial wall of plaques that originated in 1989. I remember it very clearly because that's when I first became curious about the phenomenon of homelessness in Pittsburgh and in the United States. Yesterday, I was overwhelmed to see 36 new names going up on the wall. And this is a combination of our homeless community members that died on the street or died in a homeless shelter for a variety of reasons. One of the things I want everybody to understand is our officers have demonstrated and continue to demonstrate caring involvement in trying to help our homeless community members on the street. And over the course of this year, we worked with Human Services and found that one of our biggest problems is the service providers and the law enforcement officers, and this would include EMS and fire. We all interact with our homeless community. We don't know each other. We don't know what resources we can provide, and we are not a cohesive team. So what I would like to see happen is recognizing that there are 36 new names on the wall this year. We have to be ready for our homeless community to probably grow with the impact of the pandemic and other concerns. And with that brings a need for officers to have the time with the right partners to get a more appropriate response to the folks we meet. We need to have our resources with us as we go out and meet our homeless community members. It's a community. I want to emphasize that this work is slow because you have to have your heart in the right place. You have to want to be open to the person in the condition you find them, and this can't be rushed. We've also worked to slowly improve our relationship with our outreach workers to show our sincerity and our commitment. I would like everybody should, and I have read several encounters like this where an officer discovered somebody that lived in their neighborhood, they went to high school with, they knew from home, is living under a bridge now. It could be any one of us. And I want to close this gap in the realizing that we're helping each other out when we are best partnered and equipped for a quick response to our folks living out on the street. This is a personal passion of mine, and I know there are officers that want to be doing this kind of work more regularly, as long as we can bring the right resources with us. Over the past 8 years, we were part of the field testers of the Big Berg app, which was a huge advancement to what the police officers could do out on the street, getting the right resources to somebody much quicker and starting to learn about what is out there. And I'm looking to have Big Berg develop further because there's more help available. And if we can tie in all of the outreach workers, all of the mental health responders, all of the social workers, we can now start to make a more helpful impact simply working together as a team. Part of that will include bringing our homeless outreach, all the people involved together with police officers so that we can start getting to know each other and building that partnership. I'm excited because I know we can do this, and it is actually doesn't have to cost a lot to do it. We just need the time to do it. As I mentioned earlier, this is slow work and you have to build that trust up. And that's the most important part of all of our outreach efforts. So that's all I really had to share right now.
All right, thank you, Anna. Shatara Murphy.
Thank you, Chief. I know we've had several encounters where we discussed the offices of community health and safety and the office of community services and violence prevention. So I won't go into great detail, but we'll welcome any questions that you have regarding those two offices. So the Office of Community Health and Safety is focusing on the social service support and the behavioral health support that our officers need, partnering with outside organizations that specialize in this work, and including the county that has a network of contracted providers who will be able to support and assist our officers when they encounter situations that require special attention in areas in which they're not trained. For the Office of Community Services and Violence Prevention, just a quick summary, we will be focusing on GDI expansion and being more intentional about our reentry work throughout the city. Community collaboration and partnership is another area of focus. Information sharing is something that we will also focus on. We are just started that through our Stop the Violence newsletter, which is well received. It's a mechanism that we're using to get violence prevention information out to the city. We are partnering with anti-violence and violence prevention and other organizations in that realm of work to make sure that the city is recognizing who is at the table doing this work, and making sure that we can partner adequately with these groups, and that our officers know who these groups and these individuals are as well, along with our GDI outreach workers. There is an area that I will spend a little more detail on, just because I know that this is something that we did not talk about the last two times that we talked about the Office of Community Services and Violence Prevention. But I'm not sure if you all recall, but in the summer, summer 2020, Governor Wolf put out a 72-page document just on recommendations on how to make PA a more trauma-informed state. And so through that, the Office of Community Services and Violence Prevention will also be taking on this task here locally. This is a large undertaking. If you have time, read through the 72-page document. I did take breaks if you need to, but I will tell you the 6 areas of focus for the purpose of this meeting today. And one of the first area is ensuring that PA's state culture is trauma informed through universal training. So we had talked about, one of our chiefs talked about trauma informed training within the Bureau. So that's an area of focus of Governor Wolf through this trauma-informed PA plan. Also ensuring all state agencies, policies and practices are trauma-informed, or more focused on prevention and healing. And that's an area that the Office of Violence Prevention is extremely focused on as well. Mandating that all licensed and funded entities become trauma-informed. There are some community groups here locally that had already taken on this work prior to summer of 2020. We have partnerships with those organizations already. And so through the Community Services and Violence Prevention Office, we will strengthen those partnerships and do so that we know how we can support this trauma-informed PA plan. Also, building and supporting grassroots and community-based efforts to help those organizations become more trauma-informed in every part of the Commonwealth. This is something that we'll also be looking at through the Community Services and Violence Prevention Office. We are looking in the best way to issue micro or mini grants to community organizations. And this trauma-informed space is an area that we intend to focus on as well. The 5th focus area of this report is recognizing and healing from traumas of major crises such as COVID-19. And we all know how COVID-19 has affected the Black community and Black businesses very, very different than it has some of the other communities in the area. So that's another area that we will be focusing on this office, making sure that we have resources and information for needed populations. And then the last area of focus is preventing and healing racial, communal, and historical trauma, whether they be individual or systemic. And we all know that we have some work to do here in that area. So I just wanted to share that piece of information with you, because I know that that was not shared the last time that we met to talk about these offices. And if you all have any questions, we are all open and to taking your questions now.
Are we good, Chief? Is that everybody? Okay, thank you very much. I want to mention that we're also joined by Councilman Burgess, and Councilman Coghill is having an issue with his computer this morning, so he will not be joining us, but He's trying to get to download this and watch the video somewhere. I just want to thank the chief and everybody for coming on, and the director for setting this all up. I think it's great. I think some of the key words that you're talking about were mentioned by the task force as well as a lot of members. Transparency, training, data, and especially representation of what our officers and the force in the future will look like. So I want to thank the chief for mentioning that. I'm going to go in order of when council members arrive. So I'm going to begin with Council Member Wilson, followed by Councilwoman Strasburger.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilman O'Connor. And thank you, Chief and Chief Schubert and Commander Ragland, Sergeant Costa, and everyone else that is joining here from the staff at the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. It's clear from the presentation that the Bureau is doing a lot, and I know, like most of the work done in the city, it feels like it can go unnoticed. So I just want to say that I do appreciate everything that Zone 1 and also former Commander Ragland, the former commander at that zone, Commander Ragland, and now Lieutenant Ford and Lieutenant Flesky are doing for the community. That said, this past year we've seen the protests. We've had people come to the public comment portion of our meetings, special public hearing, and they they don't want to go unheard, and to that point, their ask is to not even look at this task force, just all in one line, just cross off 50%. Now, and their question is why is it increasing 38 million over the past since 2014? And so I've done a lot of I've done some research on this, and especially with my area in District 1, trying to understand the role of everyone and what's needed, and what other entities I should be working with alongside the police. And I found, just by looking at some of the press briefings, some past budgets, that these increases were due to being out of Act 47, having higher, being able to bargain for higher wages, the Northview Heights substation that was mentioned here, the downtown substation, and the new contract for the body cameras. So, I wanted to, if someone could elaborate on this, because, on the north side, there was one north side that was created that did have a lot of outreach, that already kind of tried to, was intentional about going to neighbors and going to residents of Northview Heights and asking them what they want. And, we see these increases from past years previous to, to me being on council. But I see this and I really wonder, like, did we get this wrong? Or is this the direction that we should be going with the substations and everything? So I just wanted to know, like, what the thoughts are on that. Are we moving in the right direction with the substations, or are we also re-envisioning that as well?
So, I mean, to answer your question, obviously every year the cost is going to go up because of salaries and things like that. To go on the body worn camera and the Taser 7 that we did, that just over $10 million over 5 years, is an investment on transparency and ensuring that our officers have the resources that are available to protect and use less lethal instead of a firearm when needed to take somebody into custody. But it also is the investment on the transparency side that it helps the community and it helps the police themselves, just in complaints that may be filed against police officers. So we believe that it's an investment that's worthwhile. And I believe all of you probably thought the same thing when we brought it before you for upgrading. So it does a more functionality on the body worn camera that helps the Bureau and helps the city of Pittsburgh. As far as the substations, I think they've been Northview Heights, you can see, even through the pandemic, I mean, that's taken a toll on a lot of us on how we do things. Speaking of community engagement, I was up there yesterday. I did a 2-hour walk around the community. They also had a winter coat giveaway, and the officers from Northview Heights were there helping to pass out coats to families that didn't have them, delivering them to the homes up there for those who couldn't come down to the church on Chicago Street to get them. It's, the violence and crime, the last I checked, and Heath can, correct me if I'm wrong, but has gone down from what we've seen in past years. They're working together, the police and the community. I was talking to Sergeant Mercurio as we were walking around yesterday, and he was kind of filling me in with, just an update on how things are going. The majority of their engagement with the community is working with them to find the resources that they need, the services that they need to help them on a variety of levels. Using technology to help with the crime or calls, 911 calls, whatever, to help the officers to make better decisions when they go out and to de-escalate things. So I think it's a worthwhile investment. That's through the Housing Authority of City of Pittsburgh, in partnership with them. Downtown, we think there's a lot of room for growth down there. It's its own unique setting. But I think eventually there's other communities. I don't think it's needed in every community, but I think there's communities that are, prime opportunities for us to have substations in there and having the officers having more contact and engagement with those who need help. As I mentioned earlier, I've been walking beats in the communities and talking to people in the community. And, I think that's something that needs to be done more, but you have to have the ability to spend a couple hours or more to walk around, and you have to have the passion to want to do it and to talk to people and find out what's going on. So as Commander Riley mentioned before, with the CROs and the NROs and things like that, that everything is a part of the whole plan, but it's got to be more than just that. It's got to be the fabric of the organization, with community engagement, because it's a 24/7 operation.
Okay. Thank you. Can you break down your vision for the relationship between the Office of the Community and Community Health and Safety and the violence prevention intervention aspect of it as well? And then could you specifically talk about how you'll make sure those offices don't fail?
We don't let anything fail, but I'm going to let Shatara Murphy jump in.
The offices were created to help support the needs of our officers and the needs of the community. And so I believe if we keep that at our core focus and we don't let, I'm just going to say it, politics and other agendas get in the way, I believe that the offices will be successful. They are people focused, and that is on, like I said, our officers as well as the communities and those unique needs. We work both offices daily with the Bureau. So the working relationship was already there before the offices are created. I'd say, if anything, at this point, they're more defined. And we will be doing some goal setting and strategizing together.
Okay. Now,
If I may, Council,
yeah, go ahead.
if I may, both offices will be located at the City County building on the 4th floor. So there will be a constant interaction, daily interaction between the offices. I mean, that's being arranged right now. And both offices, I mean, Shater and the mayor's office, as far as hiring new employees or the new employees that will staff the offices, I mean, they're going to be interviewed by Shater, myself, and a representative from the mayor's office as well. So there will be that cohesiveness on a daily basis.
Can you explain the transition? If hopefully this is part of it, about, everyone continues to talk about social workers going in instead of police officers. We continue to say those terms, but I'm really wondering, can someone elaborate on this? Because, how are calls handled currently for people who are experiencing homelessness? Like, why would someone call on someone who's experiencing homelessness? Like, who is calling? Like, what are the? Can someone speak, of instances of maybe Mr. Johnson has some data on this, in terms of the amount of calls for people who are experiencing mental illness or homelessness, and how you're going to work with the Office of Community Services, and then also this new AHN program that's trying to address the urban poverty problem.
And I'll let a couple people jump in here, but I just want to say a couple things. One, people call because they can call 911 for anything, and we're going to show up and try to help. There was a call this morning up in Zone 3 on Bronzeville Road when I was coming into work this morning for somebody to call 911 because somebody was acting strange and didn't have a jacket on. So they were concerned about their well-being with the temperature and what they were doing and not having a jacket. So obviously we're going to respond to that. Now, whether somebody else could respond to that, that's a whole different thing. But I would say we really have to wait and see what we get from the report and the recommendations from county DHS. They're working with law enforcement, they're working with EMS, they're working with 911, they're working with all the various social service entities to come up with what they think is the best recommendation on how to do this stuff. So I don't want to be premature on some of the things.
And waiting for that report is imperative just from a safety perspective as well. Our officers are often called because, the situation may appear to be violent in nature, and then someone else may come to the scene and have some other tactics or skills to help de-escalate a manner to take that threat of violence away from it. But we certainly just don't want to throw civilians into these situations without a plan and some type of variables that we're evaluating to determine the risk of various situations and determining if an officer is needed versus a civilian support worker.
Great. Did anyone else?
I was going to jump in too. In terms of call volume, depending on the month, you can receive between 150 and in excess of 200 calls for service that are related to psychological issues of some sort. And those, range from minor things to very serious incidents. So it is important to keep in mind too that there is a range of those calls that come in and probably do need to be addressed differently depending on those calls. So it's kind of it's a difficult situation, but it's one that's all too common. If you average it out to 3 a day or something, this is certainly an area that will benefit from being addressed.
Okay. I know others have a lot of questions, and I think I'm going to make this one my last question, which is one of the items on the task force that was identified was the relations with the Fraternal Order of Police, and it spoke to the recommend. One of them was to amend Act 111. Can someone speak to the discipline currently of officers, and if there is wrongdoing or someone is accused of something that goes through OMI, or actually, could you explain that process for everyone? Because, you know, and what the barriers are to actually holding people accountable if they are acting inappropriately.
Well, I'll just say this. So anybody that, you know, does something that violates the policy, or there's an OMI complaint, and it's sustained, and we take disciplinary action, we do that. It generally goes back now to the commander of the individual, and they'll write up the DAR. It will come up through the chain of command. There will be a DAR hearing. Obviously, the officers have rights as well based on the contract and FOP representation. You know, they have an opportunity to give their side of what occurred as well. You know, just like we do with the community giving a voice, they get a voice as well. And we'll then make a recommendation on whatever that discipline might be. It will go up to the public safety director, and he'll make his recommendation, and they may then appeal it, and it will go back in front of the public safety director. And if they don't like the ruling of what he or she in that position, you know, for now and in the future, they can then appeal it to an arbitrator. And I don't think it's so much in ours, and I'll let the public safety director jump in, but it's when it gets to the arbitration portion that we have issues with.
Yeah, you know, what has come out in the media is incidents where the arbitrator, after hearing both sides, makes a decision basically to put the officer back on the force, or to reduce the discipline that was, you know, issued from my office, you know, through the chief. There is just, those are isolated incidents. I mean, there is a wide array of discipline that is issued on a regular basis that never reaches the arbitrator, whether it be an oral reprimand, written reprimand, or days off. The ones that you hear about are the ones that usually are reduced and the officer comes back. And that is what the mayor is concerned about. That is sometimes what we are concerned about is, you know, many cases are investigated by OMI. Some cases don't warrant being investigated by OMI, and the minor offenses are actually dealt within the police bureau, and the discipline goes through the normal chain. I mean, the only variable is that a lot of time OMI will conduct the investigation and turn the results over to the chief. So there are incidents that have made it to the media that the arbitrator decides that an officer should be put back on duty. And, you know, we abide by that because that's what's currently in legislation through Act 111. And that, I believe, that is what the mayor's concerns are, as well as our concerns, that sometimes the arbitrator may disagree with the city.
Okay. Yeah, I just saw that as one of the task force items, and just wanted to ask that one specifically. That is all I have. I did lie though. I do have one more, which is and Chief Schubert, you brought up this in your comments previously when we opened up about the diversity on the police force and how we would see a decrease if we continue down this path. Why is it that in the I don't know, was it in the past that there was a greater influx of diverse candidates for the, you know, for the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police? Are we not like what changed? Like, it sounds like there's a disproportionate amount of individuals that are older that are Black and brown than you know, the younger officers.
So in the late 70s, there was a federal order, a consent decree kind of, if you will, and it required the city of Pittsburgh to hire in a list of fours. So a list: Black male candidates, Black female candidates, white male candidates, white female candidates. And every list of or academy class that would come out, you had to select one from each of the groups. So right off the bat, 25% or 50% was going to be people of color. So from, and I think Linda can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it started in 79 until I believe 92, when it was overturned by officers or candidates that sued the city of Pittsburgh, and they overturned the that order. And so that's why you see between 79 and 92 the amount of people that were hired, and we've lost a lot through retirements over the years just from that. But that's why you're seeing it, and we're not seeing the numbers for taking the test and going through the process to get on. And you know, that's something that's, you know, it's draining on us because we can't figure it out. I mean, civil service is responsible for the testing and things like that. We're figuring out ways where we can help with recruitment internally. We're going to put somebody full-time to work with the civil service for recruitment. And I can tell you, civil service does an incredible job. I mean, all you need to do is reach out and see all that they have done for recruitment, but it's not there. And I can tell you, recruitment is down nationally over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's down locally, getting people to want to become police officers anymore. So that's kind of where it's at. It's its own question, and it's probably going to take its own time to talk about, to delve into it. And civil service would need to be a part of that as well.
Well, thank you for answering the question. I appreciate the historical, context there. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, the Director and your staff, and thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Chief, just so you know, we did email all members. Will have that report. They should all have it by now. So thank you very much. I'm now going to go to Councilwoman Strasburger, then followed by Gross and Burgess.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope you all can hear me. I apologize. I have to wear a mask today. We had to pivot and bring childcare home today. So hope you all can hear me. I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for holding this post agenda, for everyone for being here today, and for each of you for those who have met individually with me or my office to help answer some questions and educate me as well. I'll just dive right in. One question I think is an add-on to what Councilman Wilson just asked, and that is, I mean, Commander Ragland spoke about the Office of Safety and Accountability being sort of an incubator of ideas, and listed a number of pretty, I think, innovative ideas that have come out of working with the community and working with community leaders, specifically in the North Side, but other places as well, citywide. I wonder if there has been any incubation of ideas having to do with two different categories within the task force report. One being use of force, and another being working with crowds and how crowds are managed. I don't want to call it crowd control, because the experts I've talked to said, don't call it crowd control. You're just trying to manage a crowd. And if any ideas have been filtered through that office to work on best practices from around the country.
So I'd say the use of force one, we are looking at that. I think we have one of the best academy classes in the country, or in the state. I can't speak for the country. I can only speak for the state, with the instructors that we have and the level of training that we provide. We did spend about an hour on the phone with David Harris, talking about things, kind of picking his brain on things, and he's helping looking nationally. You know, we have the luxury of getting information from PERF. We have the luxury of being a part of the Major City Chiefs Association. So there's a lot of things that we pull stuff for. I happen to be on the Major City Chiefs Police Reform Task Force myself, working on a national level. So yeah, there's always things we're looking at to see. And as I said in the beginning, we're always evolving. We're always looking how we can do things better. And a lot of times things happen that in law enforcement in general, that cause a change in how we do things. So we are always evolving on that. The working with the crowds, we're actually waiting, and the director might be able to jump in this, but you know, others looking into that as well. I believe Citizens Review Board is doing something as well. So not trying to like compete with some things.
Yeah, there are, as the chief mentioned, the Citizens Review Board is working with a company now to look at the best practices, to look at ways we can improve. As the chief has stated over and over again, you know, we're not perfect. I have to compliment the police. I mean, we had well over 200 marches throughout the downtown area. The great majority of them were peaceful, even though that a lot of the organizers didn't want to cooperate with police. We were able to escort them safely throughout the city. We did have some problems, but at the same time, we're willing to listen. The one thing that I have said over and over again is, I mean, we will not allow officers to get injured. And the incidents that did occur, I mean, there were injuries, not only to some of the protesters, but to the police officers. And, you know, injuries and damage is a problem. But like I say, with over 200 protests and demonstrations, and I think we had problems in about maybe a dozen at the most, and 2 significant days of protests, which led to violence. So, but we are looking at ways to improve. It's not only within the state, but throughout the nation. And there were lessons learned, and we will take the successes, but we will also take the criticism and ways to improve and modify our response if this happens again.
Thank you both for that answer. My second question is related to the data. So I think Commander Holmes and Dr. Johnson touched on a lot of the work that the data team is doing. Data team, sorry, I don't know the exact name of the team. And I'm heartened to hear that essentially all the recommendations in the task force related to data will be hopefully completed by the end of 2021. I think the public is hungry for some access to some of the data that goes above and beyond what is provided in the annual report, to understand, you know, not just how Bureau of Police is measuring itself, but how the public can understand how the Bureau is measuring itself and making changes in response to that, whether it is response to calls or the types of calls coming in, or discipline, to be frank, related to what Councilman Wilson was talking about. I guess two-part question. One is how do we think that it's going to be conveyed? Is it going to be a dashboard? Is it going to be some other way of visualizing the data that it comes in? Hopefully disaggregated as the report asks for. And then I guess judgment call. You know, this is something that the Bureau is taking upon itself, and the Department of Public Safety is taking upon itself now. The challenge without having something set in stone is that it could change 15, 20, 30 years from now. Is council action, would that be helpful? Would a resolution asking for this to be mandated data reporting into the future, would that be helpful to ensure that what is being done over the course of 2020 now and over the course of 21 continues far into the future?
I'll let the chief and director answer the second part. The first part, you're correct. And one of our goals for 2021 for the units under my command is to do more analytical reporting. So we're certainly on board to do that. We're also working right now, actually behind the scenes, to get some more of those data sets and dashboards known to the public, because there are a lot that are already there that we believe that the public just isn't aware of. And certainly we do our monthly one-pagers, and we're looking at doing different types of analytical reporting in a one-pager format with raw data plus heat maps and things of that nature. So for people who are visual, to support, what they want. And Heath, Dr. Johnson, if you want to add any more to that, you can.
Yeah, certainly I can speak a little bit to it. I will admit that internally, our capability to do things like create dashboards wholesale from the ground up is quite limited. I have a very skilled team, but we have had some attrition, and it doesn't look like hiring some of these skill sets will be at least coming anytime in the very near future. So we are relying right now on our partnerships with some of the entities I mentioned that are housing our data. I do expect that, again, like I said, those have been very productive meetings thus far, and I expect them to continue in that way. Dashboards are a pretty useful one, and one that we're aiming for, at least in certain data sets. But, even those come with their limitations, because that means, again, too, you have to be versed in how those work. So, that's certainly one of our goals. Just reporting our data at the base level, I think, should be, though, acknowledged as a big step. 5 years ago when crime analysis was begun in its current iteration, we didn't even have access to the data we ourselves were producing in a ready manner. And that's been a huge development. So it's come a long way. I'd be happy if there is, specific data sets that people feel would be best conveyed in dashboards. We've certainly had a lot of that input, and I know that people have expressed interest in some of the things that aren't currently there, but it should be pretty easy to get on those public platforms. I know traffic stops being one of those. But right now, essentially all our crime data, arrest data, firearm seizure, violent crime stats, all of this is available in various forms. And again, I hope it to continue. It is going to, though, quite frankly, require us to continue these partnerships with other agencies and, frankly, rely on some of their expertise and assistance to, to go beyond where we are presently, I guess I'll say.
Yeah, one thing I would just follow up on it, because there are requirements in legislation for the annual report. Things that are added, the only thing that I would ask is that if there are things that are added, that we have the resources and capability of being able to do it. And, funding, that's one thing I asked Dr. Johnson before, is there software, or there's things that we need now, and what would that cost to do it?
Thank you. And I'll just note that we approved a one-year contract for the Department of City Planning earlier this year, a couple of weeks ago. within this Office of Sustainability and Resilience, to allow them to start a dashboard to be able to demonstrate the data that they're collecting from the energy performance and energy efficiency data from large office buildings, which is now mandated citywide. I asked if it's something that would allow for a dashboard presentation beyond that category. They said, yes, if it's successful, we could potentially extend the contract and expand it. So just wanted to note that for your own edification in case that's helpful in saving taxpayer dollars in the future. But thank you for your questions. I'll leave it at that and let others get their questions in.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I will pass it off to Councilwoman Gross.
Hi there, everybody. Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Thank you all to everyone from the Police Bureau for being here and making so much time to answer questions, not just once, but many times over the last couple of months. And we, I think, are getting a much deeper understanding of the complexity of the issues that we've been talking about at council, that you all are dealing with on a daily basis, but also that our public is speaking to us about. You've heard me say many times, I'm sure, at City Council, that I think it's important for this council to look at our budgetary responsibility. You've, I'm sure, heard me say at City Council meetings that over the last 15, 20 years, our all of the departments that got slashed for budgeting and staffing so many of them are still in austerity budgeting and resources, but it looks like the police department specifically has recovered and is definitely at a higher staffing level than we've seen in, I want to say 15 or 20 years. And it's definitely at a large portion of total expenditures for our city budget. You've heard me say that even in the 2020 numbers, there were, which I have more deeply analyzed than the 2021 budget since we only just approved it at council, is that we have something like $115 million were budgeted last year for the kind of staffing. But that if you look at all the costs that go along with that level of staffing, the number of vehicles, the number of the equipment, in the equipment leasing authority, and in the INP department, in the law department, in the finance department, and pension obligations, that you have something like $178 million of expenditures in 2020 out of a $600 million budget. And while Councilman Milson asked about the proposition of just cutting capacity by half, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about why you're, I assume, advocating for these advocacy levels that you, or staffing levels that you have now. At, I think it's, I keep asking this question because I know it changes. I think the last time we asked it was at 975 officers on payroll today. Maybe one of you can tell me, you may actually know. I think the last time I asked you how many people you had on payroll, Commander or Chief Schubert, you said 1,004, but I'm assuming that was civilians and officers.
No, right now our budgeted number is 900, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would say between like 960, 970 with the recruits and those in field training.
Okay, so when we budget for 900 officers, does that include officers and recruits? So how, you know, I think that's maybe, I was going to talk about something else, but maybe we should answer this first. How can you have more people on payroll than we budgeted for?
So the budgeted number is 900. That's officers out in the field. I mean, it doesn't count people off on comp and other reasons, but those are sworn police officers that are there. As I said earlier, it takes about a year to hire somebody and replace them. So it's having classes in to replace people that are going to leave. So there's no classes for 2021. So whatever we lose for a retirement, it could be 50, it could be 100. We don't know.
Sure.
300 are eligible to retire.
Sure. There needs to be a
we don't-
pipeline, and I understand that, but it's still a kind of curious budgeting thing that maybe I'll just park for now. But I assume that if we, we, for example, just voted on the city planning budget, as Councilwoman Strasburger just mentioned, I don't think they can go out and hire just additional positions that weren't budgeted for. So that might be a different question for a different day. But I wanted to ask you about your staffing levels compared to our other benchmark cities. So in Pittsburgh, we have for a long time now, 10 or 15 years, been comparing ourselves to about 14 or so cities. They've been in the Post-Gazette. It's now handled at Pittsburgh Quarterly, usually. And so we're comparing things, how well our populations are doing, what, economic development projects, airports, whatever it is. And it's been going on for a long time. So I had my staff pull out those cities and compared the staffing levels per capita. So how many officers per 10,000 people and how many total employees in a police bureau per 10,000 people. And it tells you two things. Some departments use a higher proportion of civilians as a part of its total police budget. And then also other cities have a higher and lower total employees per capita and also total officers per capita than does Pittsburgh. And I'm going to try this fancy Zoom thing that we've started to do here, which is to share my screen. Is everybody looking at this spreadsheet? Yes. So Pittsburgh is down here. This is 2015 data. So this was based on staffing in 2015 when Pittsburgh had 872 officers on payroll, not 970. And so it would really actually be a higher number now. I'm suspecting it would be something around 30 officers per capita. And I don't know what that does to your ratio here. You'll see that there are cities that are our benchmark cities we like to compare ourselves to that are much lower. Seattle at 19.7 officers per capita. But when you move over and look at their employees per capita, you see that that's 28.1 employees per capita. So that means that they have a lot more civilians on staff. And so they're not that much lower when you look at total employees per 10,000. Austin is another place we like to compare ourselves to see what we're stronger in, weaker in, et cetera. Their officers are at 18.6 per capita, and total employees is down lower at 24.4 per capita. There are cities that are far higher. Baltimore, 42.6 officers per capita. Philadelphia, 40.9 officers per capita. We're looking at, I saw people talking about sports and hills. We've had some council members bring that up. Denver, I think maybe hilly, maybe not actually as hilly as Pittsburgh inside of Denver City. But it seems like it's kind of a plateau. It's 21.5, but they definitely have major sports teams. So there are other factors people have brought up. So I'm going to stop sharing that so we can see each other. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to those numbers. Anybody?
Yeah, I'll start off and I'll turn it over to the chief real quick. I mean, we have, over the last 4 years that I've been here, almost 5, I mean, we've talked about, number one, hiring more civilians to do work that civilians would be capable of doing. And some of the work would include investigations, crime scene investigations, like photography, what our officers do now. And we would hire subject matter experts to be a photographer or to be able to lift prints or to be able to respond to the, similar to what the desk officer does in each of the zones. The problem is that, and many of these positions have actually been eliminated with the budget this year. But the problem that we found in some of the cities you've mentioned, Councilwoman, is that the pay that we would offer here in the city is not comparable to what expertise that we would need from the civilians. And my idea was, or the chief's idea is, to put the officers on the street, to be involved in community engagement, and to allow civilians to take over some of the officers' responsibility. But the problem is, and we've had positions open for long periods of time, that we cannot get appropriate people that are interested in being hired in the city for those civilian positions, mainly because of the pay. I mean, my background being from the federal government, I mean, a lot of, you take the Federal Bureau of Investigation, when I was there, you had 13,000 agents, special agents, and that's to include agents in upper management position, and you had approximately 35 to 40,000 civilians to support those agents. But with that being said, the government paid those civilians comparable salaries for the jobs that they do. And you know, we've been tackling this for several years, and you know, we could probably lower the officers, the amount of officers, if we had the civilians to replace them. But right now, officers, they're hired, they're sent to specialized training, especially in the crime scene unit, because number one, they enjoy what they're doing. They've developed over time as subject matter experts in the career that they've chosen. And the pay is comparable to the duty that they're doing. So it's a problem. And you know, when I first arrived here 5 years ago, we had 800 officers. And I heard for 2-3 years continuously, we need more officers, we need more officers. Now we're up to what I consider a satisfactory level of officers. And we want to basically curtail back to to where we were years ago. I mean, crime statistics this year, I mean, our homicides as of today, I believe, is at 50, or our non-fatal shootings are at 148. And of course, we're worried about not being able to support the salaries for the officers that we have, and possibly having to resort back to levels that, in my opinion, would be very detrimental to the city of Pittsburgh as far as crime. And we have to come to the equal balance. We realize that, but a lot of the cities that you mentioned, they have more civilians, but some of those tasks that they're doing alleviates the police officers from doing those duties. And we've looked at putting clerks or putting individuals in the zones and moving the police officers out into the street. But with that, there has to be the infrastructure in place to make sure that they're safe. And we cannot have an individual in a zone by himself or herself in the middle of the night and be potentially subject to violence. So I'll turn it over to the chief, and maybe he can add on to my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the civilian side, that's exactly right. We can't hire people. I mean, we're not paying a salary that people want to take those positions. We struggle all the time just hiring clerks for various positions with it. But, you know, and I've told you this before, you know, I was here, everybody on the screen for the most part was here on the police side when our budgeted number was 900 and we had 805, 807, 810, whatever, trying to get to the number that we were never able to get to. And I can tell you how difficult it was, and services had to be cut. And if we go down to those numbers, there's things that's going to have to be cut. And, you know, I'm just going to be blunt, like community engagement and things like that are the first to be cut, which is something that, you know, I'm totally against, because I believe we have an opportunity of my whole career. I believed in community policing, but there's things that you need, resources you need to make that happen. Even while you're trying to make it the fabric of the organization, you need people like Sergeant Costa and the countless others who were NROs and CROs to help do a lot of that work that you're just not going to have. I saw it. I watched stations closed. I watched specialty units shut down, and I watched community engagement disappear over the years. So, you know, you got to look at, I mean, city of Pittsburgh, I mean, we've, what, 305,000, somewhere around there, residents. We're a very compact city when you look at, you know, total square miles. You know, I always like to look, we're a small town with a big city charm, or I'm sorry, a big, small town, but we have a charm of being a small town. You know, you got to look at the daylight population. You got to look at, we have 3 professional sports teams with all that have stadiums in the city of Pittsburgh. We have all the major hospitals. We have the major universities. Even though they have their own police departments, we're still responsible for those as well. So there's a litany of reasons why you need the manpower to do it. I mean, one of the things we are going to do, unless it was cut, is a staffing study to really see where we are as far as the manpower as it relates to civilians. The last time it was done, I think, was 2005, and maybe Linda or somebody else can correct me, but it was probably 2005 by the IACP. But I know when we were working with Lee Schmidt, we now have Rachel Opperman, you know, looking at what that would look like to see a true staffing study.
I think that's really good input, Chief. And I want to kind of focus on one thing that you said, because I could hear it's really important to you, that you really firmly believe, you said it's incredibly important to you that you engage in community policing. And I want to thank you for that. I think it's very important what a lot of the people in your department are talking about today, and being the people communicating that they're the kind of points of coordination on the ground when we're dealing with people with addiction, with needs, with mental health issues, with homelessness. But I also want to say something back, which is that we cannot give you all of the responsibility for community health. So both things are true. So both things are true.
And we've said multiple times, before anything happened this year, before DHS stepped in, we're the ones that have been asking for help from the county, because those services aren't the city. Those are the county. We do not have control over them. They have $2 billion to do stuff. Things are happening now, but we've been the ones who have been actively asking for it for years.
So yes, we need, and I think that's part of what the pressure is, honestly, with our citizens also looking hard at the city budget and saying, basically, why can't we there are so many needs in our communities that our neighbors have. And I've said this to you before, and then people are like, look at this big fat budget. We can't have the money we need for these other things because the policing budget is so big. And yes, there are lots of other issues to work at, which I know that other members have spent some good time working on policies to work on training and on police interactions and make those more positive. But I think we have limited resources. We all know that. And we want to talk about how we do what our communities need. And is it always an officer who does that? And yet the officers are still going to be there, and there will be officers, and there will be officers out there. And then also where we spend their time. I am interested on, and I'm not going to spend any more time on the kind of crime analysis unit. I think that's really important work, but I also don't want us to lose sight of the work that Councilwoman Strasburger has done, showing that really it looked like 2/3 of your hours of your officers, of the total bureau's time, maybe even more than 2/3, is on things that aren't crime. Traffic, wellness visits, I can't remember all the categories because I don't have Councilwoman Strasburger's report up in front of me, but I'll let her talk more about that. But we need to, I think, also look at where are the things that police officers can do because they are the best trained to do those. And then where are times, and other members have touched on this, where we need social workers or other groups, or we need, the Department of Human Services assets better deployed in the city. I'll just frame it that way. Without that taking away, that doesn't mean that we aren't asking our police department to do community policing also. It's just not to be the place where all of the community needs to be met. And so we don't want to conflate these things, I think. So I'll just leave it there. And I think we are going to continue to talk about this in the new year and really talk about how much policing we can afford, both to have safe neighborhoods, but also how much police that we can afford to have as, at the defunding of other important city functions. Right, so this budget defunds permits, licenses, and inspections. This budget defunds city planning. This budget defunded even the Commission for we don't call it Human Rights Commission. We call it something other commission that I'm sorry, it's escaping my name. We've had too many meetings. And it's defunded DPW. It's defunded Parks and Rec, and we did not defund police even a little bit. And so I'm supportive of the positive initiatives with the Stop the Violence Fund and with the Community Health and Safety Department. And I look forward to talking more about that. But I'll stop now, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Our last council member is Councilman Burgess. Councilman.
Thank you. Let me start off by just first of all saying thank you to Director Hisrich, Chief Schubert, your staffs, Shatara, for the work that you do. I want to thank you for the opportunity to work with you as a partner. Since I've been in office, over 600 people were murdered in this city. Over 80% of them with guns. Many of them in my district. I ran for council. I've been a pastor in Homewood for 36 years. I lived through the 80s and the awful times when Homewood was the most violent place in the state. I've been in my church and had shootings across the street. I've had shootings, I've had a man decapitated outside my church. I've had shootings in front of my house. I've had shootings behind my house. For me, this is not theoretical. This is not, my work does not, and I have spent my career working, I believe, with several police chiefs, several public safety directors as a partner to bring in initiatives. I have been saying that we can do things differently, and we have done things differently over the years I've been here. This is not the same police force than when I came on council. We're not the same city. Since I've been on council, no request from the police has been denied until recently. You know, there was a push by the majority of council to increase officers. It was not just, you know, the officer, it was not just the police, it was also council. And the preventative programs that we tried to initiate was always met with scrutiny and, you know, until recently. And so now I'm glad over the next year that this has now become a cause that people are interested in, and I welcome your participation. But for me, this is not today the flavor of the month or the subject of the month. This is something I have worked on my entire career. So let me say three things. First of all, as I've said publicly and privately, and it's checked with the law department, we cannot fire police officers at this point. We cannot. The only way to reduce the force, if for those of us who want to reduce the force, is to not hire new officers. It is the single only way you can do it. But even when you do that, it has to be done carefully, because we have to, on the left, on one side, if we're going to reduce the force, we have to increase the services that prevent the need for officers in the first place, right? So we have to reduce homelessness, reduce drug addiction, reduce mental illness, reduce the need for affordable housing, rebuild economic drivers, increase employment, increase entrepreneurship. We have to do those things on one side to get rid of the cause of crime and violence, right? And then on the left-hand side, we can change how the officers have more civilians, do all the things. This becomes a juggling act, right? A juggling act that will occur over many years. For me, this is life or death. These are not decisions of numbers, although numbers are important. This is not really a policy decision, although policy decisions are important. I have lost so many members of my family and friends and church members from violence. I have seen it, not away, but up close and personal. You know, I've spent my career, you know, in the jails as a chaplain and then as a director of education, running programming that were reintegration and violence reduction. So I will continue to work. I read the task force. I'm sorry for the background noise in my house. I will continue to work with police and the public safety. We have great chief, great public safety director, great assistant. I'll continue to work with them. I'll continue to work with council. But I'm suggesting to you, this is not something we can do without partnership. And the partnership cannot be that today, this year, policing is, you know, the flavor of the month and something we're interested in because, you know, it's in the newspaper. I hope that you will join me to making this a priority. This has been my priority for at least the last 12 years I've been on council, and probably 10 years before that, before council. Let's work long-term together. I can testify that the public safety director and the chief and the departments are willing for partnership. We have to make tough decisions, right? May have to make tough decisions in May and June, but we have made the city safer. We have modernized the police force. You know, we've used greater technology, greater training, greater transparency. We've had a number of initiatives. You know, we've done procedural justice and implicit bias and racial reconciliation. We'll continue to do those things. I'm simply saying that it's going to take all of us. But we have to remember at the end of the day, there is violence in our city. That violence is concentrated primarily in poor African-American communities. And as we move forward, we have to remember that their lives are important and the protection of their lives are important. And we cannot, should not, and I will not do anything that does not protect those lives. And so how do we do that, right? Is it the programming? Is it more officers? Is it less officers? Is it social workers? Is it the group violence stuff? Is it all the above? I don't have all the answers, but let's work together thoughtfully, sincerely, and let's also take serious input for those communities that are disaffected disproportionately by guns and violence. Because those shots, those deaths happen every. They happen every month. And there's not the There's not the great, news shows. There's no arenas pit with people. They just die anonymously. And so this issue is something we must do together, and we will do together. For every death is important. Every life is important, and we'll try to help them all. I'm sorry, that's enough. Thank you for your sharing. I've talked to the members of the committee. I hope to work with the police and public safety to implement the recommendations and to continue doing more creative things like ShotSpotter and Stop the Violence and the Maryland Lethality Assessment Model and all the other things that we've been in partnership and able to do. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Councilman. I just want to thank everybody for being here, all council members. This is obviously an important topic for all of us, as well as the passionate individuals that work in that field. I think, again, the words that you guys were talking about and how you've started to implement that's really important for, us as council members, the general public, to know about the transparency and everything that's going on, obviously, with representation and with data and how you see our force moving into the future. So I want to thank you for your willingness to do a follow-up from the task force meeting. I think that's a good way for our departments to get out in front and say what we've done, what we're doing, what we plan on being open to other ideas down the road in the future. So thank everybody for being here. Thank all council members for being here. I do want to give a thank you to public safety as well, all departments, Director Histrick for setting this up, the chief for being here. And then a personal thank you. We had an incident at my mom's house the other day, and I didn't get to thank EMS on our last council meeting, but they were very good on the spot and great with a follow-up. So I want to thank them as well. And to everybody viewing, please continue to have this conversation. I think it's one that we are all open to a dialogue about in the future. So with that, thank everybody for being here, for giving your time, and everybody have a very safe and healthy holidays. Take care.